So what we always try to do is combine both, and that's really the sweet spot when you can be warm and likable, but then people respect you and take you seriously. That's where all the magic happens.
You're listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author Sarah Box. We focus on the mantra, no labels, no limits, no excuses. And now without further ado, please welcome your commanding coach with plenty of chutzpah and heart, Sarah Box.
Hey there, No Labels, No Limits podcast listeners. Welcome back. I'm Sarah Box, your host of the No Labels, No Limits podcast, where we are on a mission to empower individuals, teams, and nonprofit organizations to break free from limiting beliefs, think innovatively, and make significant impact in the lives of others and, of course, their team members and their family. We achieve this by featuring remarkable guests who have defied societal labels and beliefs to achieve their own personal and professional goals. And today is no different. We are joined by Ty Hoesgen, a communication coach, two-time best-selling author, and the founder of Advanced Growth Institute. Now, from growing up as a shy kid on a farm to becoming a leading expert in communication, Ty's journey is nothing short of inspiring. I will tell you, if I would not have ever guessed him to be shy from just our pre-record chit chat because he's very outgoing. But as we know, some introverts can hide. So he is a transformational life challenge. He has transformed life challenges into a passion for helping others communicate with confidence and clarity and empowering them to enhance their influence and leadership. What I really like is that he has this commitment to mastering communication skills, and that has led him to help over 300 people from introverts to extroverts. We'll look a little bit at that. And those people to achieve success in their personal and professional lives. So when he's not coaching, he indulges in his unique hobbies, which include daily sardines, playing the piano, and challenging himself with saunas and ice baths. So I'm going to talk to him about bits and pieces of all of that today because I'm very interested to know more about Ty, what makes him tick, and how he helps entrepreneurs and individuals in the world reach their goals. So with that, let's officially welcome Ty Hoesgen to the podcast. Hi, Ty.
Hello, Sarah. That is quite the introduction. I appreciate that. You covered a lot of the bases of Ty there.
The basis of Ty. That's your next book title. The basis of Ty. Just saying.
You heard it here first.
There you go. I like the sound of it. So, all right, just what is the deal with sardines? I like sardines. What is the deal with sardines here?
This is a question I actually get quite a bit because I work in an office and there's a lot of people around. So I'm eating my sardines every day, and at least once a week, someone's like, "What's with the sardines all the time?" And I'm a big health guy. I love to eat healthy. I like to, maintain some muscles and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of protein in sardines, a lot of healthy fats in sardines, those omega-3s that are good for our brain. And you know what? It takes no prep time, no cooking involved. You just buy the cans, you open them up and start eating. So if you're obsessed with maximizing your time, like I am, then it's great for that. So for me, it's got the protein, it's got the fats, it's efficient, and I have to do absolutely zero work to prepare them.
Pop the can. That's all there's to it. Okay, this may seem random. What's your favorite brand? Do you have one?
Oh, I want to say Coleman's. I could be a little bit off on that. I should know because I look at this can every day. It's something like that, and there's this lemon pepper flavor in a yellow package that is really good.
I like sardines. That's why that's a total personal thing. I'm not trying to promote their brand per se, but I like to get recommendations from people who really like something and actually use it. It's like, so what do you like? So, because I like sardines ever since I was a kid, and people do give you that, what's up with the sardines? So that's why I asked you. But let's go back to your transformation journey. So you talk about being this shy kid, and now you're this communication expert. How did you get from that place to where you are now? What was your journey and what kind of triggered that for you?
Yeah, it was pretty easy. I just kind of decided one day and then I woke up the next, and just like that, I was a great communicator. So that's the story. That's all you have to do, guys. quite simple.
So you know he's not telling you the truth there, folks. I hate calling my guests liars, but I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that's
Yeah, obviously kidding. I wish it was that easy. We'd all be excellent communicators if that were the case. It was quite a long journey. I was very much a shy, awkward kid. So I grew up on a little farm in Western Canada. I live in downtown Toronto now, but I grew up in this tiny little farm, and the nearest town only had 800 people. So at that time, it was 800 more people that I wanted to be around. And I remember my favorite thing to do was climbing trees. There was a bunch of trees surrounding our farmyard. And so I remember one day I was about 10 years old and I was searching for the tallest tree that I could find. So when I found it, I climbed all the way up to the top. I remember just looking out into the distance. In Western Canada in the prairies, it's very flat, so I could see for miles and miles. I remember just thinking to myself, I wish I could just stay up here forever. Now, I thought that because I liked being alone, I didn't want to be around people, and no one expected me to talk. They couldn't find me at the top of a tree. So, of course, growing up, a lot of us have siblings. Do you have any siblings, Sarah?
well, I do in fact have siblings.
Are you a older sister, younger
Back in the
sister?
middle.
In the middle, the
Yeah.
forgotten one.
So they say. I think I've
So they say.
overcompensated for that. But an
There's no-
introvert. So that's why I'm curious. I mean, really never have varied off of that. I keep going, maybe it's different. Nope.
Yeah. I had an older sister myself, and she was very much the opposite of me. She was outgoing, she was an extrovert, she loved to talk. So if somebody would ask me a question growing up, she would jump in and say, "Let me tell you what Ty thinks." So I got a lot of practice just hiding behind the scenes, chilling in the background, which I really liked at that point. But that's not really beneficial when you're an adult and you're trying to build a career, you're trying to build relationships. Hiding behind your older sister isn't realistic once you get to a certain age. So when I graduated university, the only job I could get was selling life insurance.
Oh man,
Now
that's up
imagine
front and
this.
center.
Oh, yeah. So imagine you're afraid to ask someone, small talk, ask them about their weekend, but now your whole income is 100% dependent on let's talk about death, let's talk about disease, what's going to happen to your family if you die young. Fun stuff like
All those very lighthearted subjects.
that. The easy stuff that everybody wants to talk to you about.
Absolutely.
So at that point, it became very apparent to me not only how important communication was, but also just truly how bad I was at it. And, tried to get my sister to answer the questions when prospects would call, but she's like, "Hi, you're an adult. I have my own job now," so that didn't really work. And I had some pretty dark days, actually. I remember struggling so much and just being anxious all the time. Just lay in bed awake at night and just think, why is this so hard for me? Why can other people speak better? Why does it seem to be so challenging? And enough nights of that, and eventually something just kind of sparked inside me where I wasn't even trying to be successful at that point. I was just trying to not hate going to work. So I thought, how can I not hate going to work as much? Maybe a thought some of us have had. So I thought about the biggest struggles I was having, and everything came back to speaking. Everything came back to communication. So I took responsibility, and I thought there has to be something that I can do. There's no way that everybody was born a good speaker. So that was kind of the key turning point. And then I just really dove in headfirst, and all of my spare time went to reading and researching and practicing and experimenting, and started to get little differences. Like after speaking in a meeting, somebody would say, "Oh, you sound like a little bit different. You sound less nervous." Because I was always known as a shy, awkward kid in the office. Didn't help that I couldn't grow facial hair, and I looked about 16 years old at that time too. So just getting these little cues from others really showed me that, oh, maybe I can make progress. Maybe it's possible. So then from there, it was really just an upward slope. Better I got at communication, better I got in my career, better relationships, social life, everything vastly improved. And now I coach and teach it for a living. So it's been quite the journey.
So, what do you love about coaching and teaching communication? Because one thing is to improve your own skills, right? But then to go to the degree that you're actually helping others, going back to your question of how can I not hate going to work, right? When we invest time in things that we're spending more time in, to me, it infers that there's something special about that for us. Like it gets us up. We're excited about doing it. So, what is it about coaching others to be better communicators?
Whenever somebody starts a program, they always say some version of, I'm not sure if I can get better at this. There's a lot of doubt. A lot of times people will say stuff also like, I don't know if this is really possible to get better at. Like, maybe not for me, anyways. And there's always just all these limiting beliefs, and they're very uncertain about if this will work for them. And then almost everyone, once they finish the program, always says some version of, oh, it's really cool. Like, this is just like building any other skill. It's just knowing how to practice, knowing the techniques, just doing it enough times, then you get good, and then you've got the skills for the rest of your life. So I think that's it, is seeing people who have sometimes went their whole lives not speaking the way that they want to speak. And most clients, they're not struggling as much as I was. Some of these are pretty high performers, but they just want to be better in their presentations or speaking to other executives. So everyone's got their own kind of layers or levels to where they want to be better, but they're not really sure that it's possible. So not only helping them make the changes and improve their lives that way, but also just seeing their pleasant surprise at, oh, all of these things can be improved. And that's really satisfying for me.
Yeah. Do people feel overwhelmed when they look, like I can imagine being nervous and saying, okay, this is my mindset. We fix my speaking. I wouldn't tell you that, but that's what I'm telling. It's like, fix it. But do people feel overwhelmed by all the things that they need to do? Or I'm trying to imagine coming and saying, okay, I want to improve. And like, where would we even begin with this, Ty?
That's a good question. A lot of people feel overwhelmed if they maybe record themselves, because if they've heard me speak on social media or anywhere else, they may have heard me say, record yourself so you know what you sound like or what you look like. So sometimes it's overwhelming for them just looking and maybe seeing all the things that they don't like or the things that they could be better. But whenever I coach anyone, we're never working on multiple things at once. It's just, as you said, it's overwhelming. And so just kind of breaking it down and focusing on what's the most high value thing we can work on first. Okay, we're going to conquer that. Then we add in the next thing. And then we just do it skill by skill, bit by bit. It's kind of like learning anything else. That's for sure the most effective way to learn. And then it becomes pretty manageable when you're doing it that way.
So when you say high value, this is how my brain works. I'm, like how I'm translating in my brain. So I'm not saying this is right. I'm testing with you that the assumptions I'm making are at least on target with what you're trying to say. So high value to me would be the domino that I could tip first that would make other things easier or better as a result of hitting that domino. So then let me pause there. Is that a high value metaphor that works in your thinking?
Yeah, the domino metaphor definitely works. For a lot of people, that first domino is the way that they're explaining their points. So for a lot of people, they'll be speaking in a meeting, they'll be speaking to somebody important, they maybe feel a little bit nervous. And this is even, for anyone listening, this happens to people of all levels. Like I work with C-suites, people at high levels, they feel a lot of the same stuff as you do. So if you're not in that position, trust me, everyone feels these things. It's just a little bit different in terms of the level that you're at. And so if we talk about the way that we're explaining points, a lot of times people will say something and it sometimes comes across the way that they want, other times not so much. It's not very clear, maybe it's not as persuasive or powerful as they might want. So really simple framework that I always teach them at the beginning just to help them organize their ideas, called point, reason, point. So PRP. Just start with your main point. I want you to send that main message right away. Then I want you to expand on it, give some reasons, support your point. Why do you think this? Maybe give an example, and then restate your point at the end so it's very clear. So that's usually one of the key first dominoes, is just how are we actually explaining ourselves versus, if they're saying a couple ums here and there, not a huge deal. We'll maybe work through that later on, but the way that you are thinking through your thoughts and ideas and communicating them, usually one of the biggest things to start with.
Boy, that totally resonates for me because it really doesn't matter how much you've spoken. If, for me, when I'm not clear in why am I talking, someone puts you on the spot, right? And you're like going, wasn't ready to go here, but I'll give it my best shot, right? So the first thing out of my mouth is not necessarily my most coherent point. So then I can't give the reasons. I start with like, well, here's the reasons. And people are going, but what's the point, right? And I don't know that sometimes. So that for me is a huge domino to be able to be that way, just where you're starting with folks. Do you find any difference when you're working with introverts versus extroverts in the process and just how they experience this work?
Kind of funny, actually. The extroverts oftentimes will think that they're better than they are, and sometimes the introverts will think they're worse than they are. Not always, but sometimes people confuse being comfortable with speaking as an extrovert as being good at it. So that's always kind of funny because they'll listen to themselves in a recording or we'll do some practice or training together. They'll be like, oh, I actually need a lot of work here. So with the introverts, a lot of times they're a little bit too hard on themselves because they're almost judging themselves for not being an extrovert, thinking that they need to be to excel in communication. The thing I see with a lot of the introverts, and I'm still one myself, like I don't want to talk to people all day long. But the biggest thing is that when you have better skills, you know what to say, you know how to say it. You've trained your brain so you can think clearly on the spot. You can explain things in a way that is clear and makes sense. You'll find that you actually enjoy conversations a lot more, even small talk, knowing good questions to ask so that you have positive conversations. And maybe you just want to listen most of the time. That's great, but having all those skills, you'll see that whether you're extrovert, introvert, everything just becomes a lot more smooth, easy, and enjoyable when you have put some time into developing skills like this.
Yeah. I was speaking yesterday in a mastermind class. I wasn't speaking, I was listening. But we were talking about, because this gentleman's focus is on communication, slightly different application of it than you're speaking of here, a little less technical, but it was so important about the balance of being able in communication to actually listen to what someone's saying. And so I'm wondering, when you're helping people be better communicators, are you thinking on the speaking end or on the receiving end, or a combination? Because you're talking about then conversation, right, which is a blend. So how do you blend that? Or do you blend that?
Well, if we're working on building the skills, we're absolutely separating them, and we're working on usually speaking first, and then we'll work on listening after. If you're in a conversation and you're trying to do too many new things at once, it becomes really hard for your brain to keep up. And then so that's usually when it's a little bit frustrating. So we'll start with speaking, then go on to listening. Also, too, if I say that we're going to start with listening, people aren't very excited. Everyone gets excited about speaking, right? They want to speak better, they want to be more confident, more clear. But if I say we're going to become awesome listeners, they're like, yeah, I mean, I know it's useful, but no one's excited. That's another part of it. Quick tip on listening that a lot of people really like, because we can say, be a better listener, be an active listener, pay attention, put your phone away. And that's all great advice, but a really tactical tip that I share with people is to try to paraphrase what you've just heard back, specifically using it sounds like. So somebody says something to you, maybe they're talking about their day, and you say, oh, it sounds like you had a very productive day. Right? So it sounds like, and then whatever your interpretation of that is. What this does is it actually forces you to listen, because if you're not listening, you can't repeat back what your understanding of what they said is. So if you're going in with the intention to try to paraphrase things back, you gotta listen more, and that gives you more intention to listen, which then helps you do it on a deeper level.
And more reflexively too, I think, when you have that, which makes me think about you starting in your insurance sales, right? Part of it's listening to what people are telling you, not just selling them on the product. It's like, what are they saying? Oh, they don't need this, they need that, right? It sounds like it's too early for you to have this, but you're interested in this. So it's a cycle piece. I like that it sounds like, because you can't fake it. You either were paying attention or you weren't, and all you're left with is, interesting.
Yeah, it
Which is
sounds
nothing.
like that's interesting.
I know. So okay, so you've given some ideas of the different types of people you've worked with, and you've given a couple of great practical tips right now. Excuse me. So can you share a couple of like transformations people have had that they did not expect to come from this type of work? Like they thought, well, maybe I can improve some, but they were surprised by what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, just in the past week, I finished working with a woman named Kim. So Kim worked for one of the major banks, and I shouldn't say which one. So I'll just say she worked for one of the major banks. And so for her, she was having a lot of problems with communication with coworkers. So just kind of miscommunication. People weren't really taking her ideas very seriously. They weren't giving her the respect that she deserved. And she was in a pretty high level position where they should have been respecting her. She should have been having more power to the things that she's saying. And so with her, she actually first came to me for that. And so things like point, reason, point were helpful for her. Things like using it sounds like, but even just teaching her how to speak more assertively, but while still being likable, and explaining things in a way that's very easy for others to understand. She ended up actually getting promoted to a new job that she didn't even apply for or ask for. She just got offered it a few months after building up some of these skills. And even her emails, I remember her saying, people are sending me like exclamation points and sometimes even smiley faces. Like they're responding so positively to me. It's like people really like me and they're responding faster and people are taking action on things that I'm saying quickly. And so just things like that. Of course, I mean, transformations don't happen in every single area for every person. With her, we did speaking, we did writing. And another surprising part with her, she was a mom of two boys. And she was using all the techniques she was learning on her kids. And I remember her saying, yeah, it's like my boys actually like, get what I'm saying more because I'm giving them reasons for a lot of the points that I have. I'm actually supporting the things that I'm saying instead of just do this. I'm actually telling them why it's important to do this. And it's like they're kind of getting it. So that one was kind of surprising too because I don't teach parenting communication. But that was one of her big takeaways was, wow, it's actually easier to parent my kids with this. So maybe I should start promoting that too. Side benefit, your kids will behave more.
Well, think about it though. When people tell us stuff without reason, it's almost like it's that old thing. Why am I doing this? Because I told you so and I'm your parent, right? It's like, oh, that has always flied with teenagers forever, right? What do we say? We thinking, I don't think so, right? Because when we're that age, we want some reason. We're trying to find our own ways and be our own person. And it shows respect to saying, here's why I'm asking you to do this, or we're going to do this. It's not even an ask, but that just shows that level of respect, like you're capable of understanding why this is important. And in business, that matters, instead of saying, because I'm the boss, it's like, so who cares, right? Why are we doing this? So that's powerful. It does have, the better we get in our communication, it does have better results in all areas of our life. At least that has happened for me. And when I slide and I'm not doing well, it has the same negative effect in reverse. It's like, was that out loud? Not a good choice at this moment. So, um, so let's think about that a little bit more, because when you were talking about Kim, who will remain employee unidentified at this point, employer unidentified, you talked about things and people were liking her more, right? Which means she's more, probably feels to the people she's communicating with, I'm going to assume they feel she's more approachable, right? Is the goal of communication to be liked more? And I ask this from a female perspective because oftentimes there's that sense like we're supposed to be liked, but not taken seriously if that's all we're doing is trying to be liked instead of effective. Do you understand that slight nuance that I'm trying to?
Yeah, 100%. And this is something that a lot of my female clients will actually ask about because whether it's them or even the men as well, typically people will fall more on one side of kind of these two main extremes. One being super warm, they're likable, people find them approachable, but they're not as respected. People don't really take them as seriously. They're maybe not assertive, or they find it challenging to be assertive at times. And on the other end, they get a lot of respect, but they're kind of cold. People don't like them very much. There's not as much trust there. They're confident this person can do their job, but they're not like, oh, I'm excited to go in a meeting with this person. It's like, let's just get this over with. So what we always try to do is combine both, and that's really the sweet spot when you can be warm and likable, but then people respect you and take you seriously. That's where all the magic happens. So depending on where a person lies, when I start working with them, we're going to add in cues that bring you closer to the combination. So even things like if you're trying to be more warm and approachable, even just things like opening up your body language, making a little bit more eye contact, asking people a little bit more about, the small talk, positive questions, getting to know them a little bit more, using a little bit warmer language in emails versus very like firm, stern language. Now, if somebody's trying to be, let's say, more competent, get more respect, be more assertive, then we're going to change up their voice a little bit, usually have them use more downward inflections, speak with a little more authority, slow down their pace so they sound more in control, then also change some of their words so they're using more strong, assertive words without being a jerk. That's the key. And so, yeah, it really just depends on the person. Some people need a mix of both, but if we can combine those two, magic.
So what are the jerky words? Because I'm serious. That's an honest question from my perspective. It's not a setup. I think it's easy to use those phrases and people are going, but what falls into that category? So I mean, years and years ago, I was new at a position and this woman came in and she just starts like she's like, okay, I'm glad you're here, but here's what I got to tell you. And I'm looking, I mean, I'm almost like, and I'm a new hire at the top of the organization. And I'm like trying to figure out what is even going on in this organization. So I looked at her and I thought what I wanted to come out of my mouth was not professional language. So I just said, okay, could you please tell me a good time to talk with you about this is, because I'm not in a headspace to do this now. I mean, I was mad, but I also didn't want to go back to like middle child, get your place language, not professional. So when we met again, I just said, first of all, I want to hear what you say, but I can't hear it like that. She was like, what? Right? And she was perplexed. And I said, you came in here yelling, and she goes, oh, I grew up in Philadelphia. That's just how we are. We're coming, I'm going to tell you what I think. And she's doing this. I said, are you like this all the time? She goes, pretty much. And I said, okay, let's have a pact. Not with me, okay? She goes, oh, okay. We got along fine. But honestly, I thought that's an overexample of her being demonstrative. But she was so brilliant. So for me, like, I didn't want to be nice, but I also didn't want to go into the jerky language, your reflex language when you're on the defense, right? And so That's why I asked that, because it's easy. Like what was normal to her was not normal to me. And so that's really for me, it's like, how do we know? How can we judge? And are there any rules that we can kind of try to figure out before we find ourselves in situations where we're scratching our heads and going, I blew that?
Absolutely. Early in my career, I had a boss, and he would always say things like, I need this done by Friday. Send this over to me. Provide this information. Nope, can't do that. Can't do Tuesday. Meet me on Monday. And it was just all these, like, whether it was email or in person, it was very short, very curt, kind of aggressive sounding statements. And they were all statements, or they were all directions, orders, right? I need this done. Now, because I was so early in my career at that point, I actually didn't know that that was bad. So I started communicating like that a little bit too, because, big boss, this guy's really successful. He's got a lot of money and a big house, and I think that's super cool, in my early 20s. So I'm trying to be like him. And then I'd sort of made a bit of a friend in the office at that time. It was a woman around my age, and she pulled me aside and she said, "Why are you speaking like such a jerk?" She's like, "You're nice in real life. Like, what are you doing?" I said, "What do you mean? Isn't this a good thing?" She's like, "No, you're talking exactly like your boss." And I said, "Yeah, exactly." And she said, everyone thinks he's a pompous douche, right?" I said, "No, I did not know that." So the takeaways there are ordering people around, lots of I statements like, I need this done, I want you to do this, send this over to me, and framing those as more questions like, hey, would you mind sending this over by Friday? Would you please complete this by Tuesday? What are your thoughts on this? Instead of tell me your thoughts. Changing a lot of those things into questions is really useful. I even notice a difference with my team. Occasionally I'll slip up, Sarah, and I'll be in a hurry and I'll be like, I need you to do this. I'll just send them a message. And they'll just message back, it'll be okay. The letter O, the letter K. And then if I am
There's some strong communication.
Yeah,
It's clear. It was clear. Okay.
I know, but if I'm following my own advice, which I normally do, not all the time, and I'll say, hey, would you mind sending this over? They'll say, oh, yeah, of course, no problem. Happy to do it.
Yeah.
Because one is stern and they feel like they're being ordered around. And keep in mind, I'm their boss. Like, technically, I can, but it doesn't matter. People still aren't going to take it well. So just questions versus statements is a big one. Unless I statements, that's another big one to keep in mind.
The other thing is we can ask a question, but it's really like the intent of the question isn't really a question. Right? So when you ask this is my opinion, so you may not agree with me, but when I ask a question, I have to ask myself, am I open to a different response than I'm offering in the question? So could you send this by Friday? I have to be open to the response coming back saying, no, but I can get it to you by Monday, right? Because if there is no wiggle room in there, then it's a fake question, which then to me means liar, liar, pants on fire. You're telling me to do it, but you didn't mean it. You're trying to be nice. So that's kind of the line I wonder sometimes, like, are we putting a fake self out, or are we changing our behavior so that we get better team results? And I hope I'm not muddying that question some.
No, I know exactly what you mean. I would say that there's always some freedom in those cases, meaning even if you told them you need it done by Friday, they couldn't do it by Friday. They'd probably still say, I can't do it by Friday, but I can do it by Monday or something like that.
Would you have told your other boss that?
I wouldn't have, but I also, if he framed it as a question, I also wouldn't have said
Because
no. So I think the result's gonna be the same. I'm
okay.
also a little more tactical in that I won't say could you or can you, because people will think, no, I can't, or I can do it, but I don't really want to do it. Right? So I will ask more of like a would you mind type of question, where instead psychologically people think, well, I don't want to do it, but
I
wouldn't
wouldn't
mind.
mind.
It's
Yeah.
fine.
Oh, great distinction, Ty. Great distinction.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
find that helps, and
Yeah.
they have the appearance of some control. Like, I don't want to say the illusion, even if it is something that needs to be done, but it's just either way, it makes the person receiving it feel a lot better because it's like you respect them enough to ask.
Yeah. No, I do understand the framing matters on how we're doing it. And I do feel like the intent behind it matters too. I'm not trying to manipulate you. I'm asking, would you mind doing it? You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying to manipulate big time. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Okay, younger brother, let's see how it
Yeah.
goes. Oh my God, I have so
Oh,
much fun with that stuff.
only maybe if I'm trying to get a restaurant that I like or something. Maybe only then I'll do a. Would you be opposed to this restaurant? A harmless ways.
That's so funny. That is so good. So Ty, let's talk a little bit whether or not your personal hobbies have influenced your professional approach and help you connect with your clients at all. Besides the sardines.
I was just gonna say the sardines are the main one.
I knew you were going to do that. I'm going, no, he's going to go right back to the sardines. I'm not falling for it.
Yeah, any of the difficult things like trying to learn a new song on the piano, which takes a lot of patience and practice, trying to sit for a long time in a sauna or an ice bath, those things aren't necessarily comfortable. And so I would say it's given me more patience and more discipline in my work. So I think that's been certainly a positive benefit. Even just physical pursuits like fitness too and working out definitely help. They have their benefits on the stress relief too, which I think helps you show up as a better person for me anyways. From working out consistently. Sometimes there's a bit of maybe aggressive energy that needs to be released in a healthy way. Like somebody maybe makes you a little bit frustrated. And so lifting weights for me kind of releases that in a way that is very healthy and benefits me mentally, benefits me physically. So most things that I do, actually, now that I think about it, do positively impact my business and the coaching.
Yeah. Yeah. I think anything we can do that helps us get out of the immediacy of the work and open us up. And you're right, that whole exercise thing. When you speak, I see pictures. Like I still see you sitting at the top of a tree right now, which I'm trying to get out of my head. Because I did that once in a park and my mom came out and she's looking up and she goes, "Are you up there?" I says, "Yeah." She goes, "Where are you?" I says, "I'm up at the top." And she goes, "You think you can get down?" And that never occurred to me. Could I get down? It was a pine tree, right? And I'm thinking, I hope so. I said, "Yeah, I'm good." I mean, I got down. It was fine. But there's just something about being up there and hearing the noise. So when you gave me that visual, it just stuck with me. But because that's my stress relief, right? To be in nature and hear that. So when you're talking about the working out, the muscles, getting all the neurotransmitters going and your energy out, that's powerful. And it does, being able to stick out something that's a little uncomfortable is helpful for business. So Ty, leave us with a couple more practical tips on communication, and then let's talk about the best way for people to connect with you.
Absolutely. I'll share one on small talk because almost everyone I know doesn't enjoy it. And I grew up an introvert, as we learned. I still have the tendencies, but I don't like to have those labels now. No labels.
No labels, no limits,
No
my friend.
labels.
Well, the rest of that is no excuses. That's what's trademarked.
Oh,
Yeah, you don't get to have excuses just because you choose these things. So
yes,
anyway,
I try to steer clear from those, but if a person that grew up the way that I did, feeling the way that I did, now enjoys small talk and goes to social events and has fun because I know I can control the conversation and keep the topics positive and pleasant, this is something that a lot of people can use and a lot of people seem to like. So instead of asking like, hey, how's your day? How's your weekend? How's work? Anything like that, I'm going to specifically ask a question that's positively framed Like, what was the best part of your week? What was the best part of your weekend? What are you excited for this weekend? Because that forces a positive response versus how are you? How's your weekend? They could answer any type of way. And you've probably been in a conversation where you ask someone a question like that and they kind of start complaining, or they're like, oh, I was going to go to the beach, but it rained, or there was all this traffic, or, I had to take my dog to the vet. And then you're thinking, oh, I really want to leave this conversation. This is not good for me. I'm not having fun. Or somebody's talking
Uh,
about work and they're just like, yeah, and I did this, and then I did this, and they're just listing events that are fairly neutral and you don't care about. But if you say, hey, what was the best part of your weekend? It makes them think about something that's very good, usually something that they like. So they might say, even if it did rain and there was traffic and they had to take their dog to the vet, maybe once their dog came back to the vet, they remember taking them to a new dog park and their dog had a ton of fun and forgot all about the vet. So they're going to tell you about the dog park. Now you know that they have a dog, they like their dog, and then it becomes very easy for you to continue that and build a connection. What type of dog do you have? How long have you had it? People love to talk about pets. Anyone that has kids, people love to talk about their kids, especially if it's in a positive way like that. So now small talk becomes easy because kind of like you're giving them a gift. They get to talk about something that they like. Their mood elevates. They're having fun. You seeing that is now more enjoyable because it's kind of uplifting to hear people talk about stuff that they like. And especially if you're an introvert, even though we're not labeling ourselves, no labels, but if we were, using this is such a game changer because you don't really have to do that much work. You can just listen and ask some questions. And I remember there's a very distinct person that I met at a networking event. She ended up becoming a client. We spoke about her aquarium for like 15 minutes. I don't know anything about aquariums. I had no prior interest in aquariums, but she was telling me the types of fish, and you can't have these fish with that fish because this fish will eat that fish. And if you have these plants, and she's just going on, I'm asking questions. I don't think I said anything about myself. Then at the end of the 50 minutes, she said, wow, you're a really good conversationalist. It was so good to meet you. What do you do, by the way? And then so I told her about what I did. We exchanged info, and then a couple of months later, she texted me because she had to do some speaking engagement and ended up becoming a client. And that was just me asking questions about something that she liked, keeping it positive, listening, and something good came out of it. So, what was the best part of blank? And then just roll from there.
yeah, I like that. Well, you set it up so that it's best part, positive, right? What did you like best? Because you're right. What's new goes wah, wah, wah sometimes. And you don't want to say, oh, gotta go. So that is such a great conversation approach, whether you like talking or not. It's interesting anyway. You learn a lot of fun things about people that way. Powerful tip, Ty. What's the best way for people to connect with you? Because if they don't see you in a networking event, what do they need to do to know more about you and what you've got going on?
Yeah, if you have an aquarium and you want a person to listen to you, I'm your guy.
Do you have one now?
I still don't have one. I still don't have one. Well, for anyone that's listened throughout this, I actually want to give your listeners a gift, if that's all right.
Of
So
course.
you've done many different episodes now at this point. So as I was going through and listening to the show, I definitely feel like you're the type of person that over delivers for your audience.
Oh, thanks.
Just sharing so much value, like the way that you show up and prepare for the guests, all the knowledge that you have. It's kind of inspired actually preparing for this. So I wanted to make sure that I show up and over deliver for your audience as well.
Love it.
So I have what's called the CEO communication kit that I'm going to give away. So there's two parts to this. First part, it's a course called Speak Like a Confident Leader in 7 days. So what this does basically shows you how to speak with more confidence, more charisma, more clarity, like the world's top leaders. And that's everything from the way that you're explaining yourself and your points to how to best use your voice and even how to optimize your body language as part of that. So that's the first part, is that course, Speak Like a Confident Leader in 7 Days. And then the second part is called the Secrets to CEO Level Presence. This is kind of the more advanced version of that. And I usually do this with my VIP clients. So I'm going to actually teach you this on a coaching call with me, totally free, just basically as a thank you for listening to the show. And so that's actually an hour coaching call with me where I'm going to teach you the secrets to CEO level presence. So if you want that, all you have to do is send me a message on Instagram or LinkedIn, whichever one you prefer, and just message me the word CEO24. That way I know you came from the podcast. CEO24. And my name on there is Tyhoesgen. And the last name's a little bit tricky, so I'll say it again. It's Tyhoesgen. And just message me CEO24, Instagram or LinkedIn, and I'll send everything over to you.
Okay, you guys, we will also have the links in the show notes for where to reach out to him. So you have to really remember just CEO24 once you get there. That's a really generous offer for our listeners, Ty. Thank you for over-delivering, because we love that. We love over-delivering. Yeah. And I'm going to stop there because I think I want to think about, because I'll be seeing a bunch of people coming up in the next few days. And I always wonder there's a couple of them I wonder, okay, let's get this positive, right? So I want to set it up in a way that's the space it opens versus leaving it wide open for anything. So I'm going to practice what you're sharing this coming week.
Yeah, perfect for those negative Nancy's or negative Nellies. We don't usually want to talk to them, but sometimes we're in situations with them, especially if they're a family member, can't always avoid those. So it's great for those types of people in particular.
Well, yeah, and they're people I really like, but their tendency is to just go in that direction until it's like a river, right? It goes the way it goes until it hits a boulder and it goes, whoops, got to go around it. So I'm trying to be the boulder without being a bully. It's like, I don't want to go down that road. Let's do a different road. You pick, but let's keep it positive. So I'm going to be practicing. I'll be thinking about you. And listeners, I hope you enjoyed this episode. There's no reason you haven't found some nugget from Ty that you can apply in your own workspace. So I encourage you just to play with it. He's given some great tips in here. Reach out to Ty, let him know how that goes for you. And let us know in the comments section below if there's anything in particular. And until next week, welcome to your next week of No Labels, No Limits Living, applying Ty's communication skills.
You've been listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author, change agent, and strategic business coach, Sarah Box. You can grab the show notes and find out how to work with Sarah at sarahbox.com/no labels, no limits podcast. We'd love this podcast to reach as many people as possible. Please remember to rate, leave a 5-star review, and share the podcast with someone you think would get value from this conversation. Till next time, keep taking those daily action steps to align your purpose to your principles and achieve your goals in business and life.